Hello and good day. It is February 16th. And this is devlog number 3 for Project Kickstep. um, yeah, I think this will be a relatively short one for reasons outside of this particular project. So I'll explain that towards the end. To jump right into it, um, this stretch, I've kind of focused a bit on really touching up my enemy, starting to develop some AI. Uh, Before we jump into the AI itself, though, another thing I've done is I've reworked the lock-on, uh, let's say, not the full logic, but how the lock-on recipient code is set up. Before it was stored into the training dummy itself. And my thought was that, well, the training dummy wouldn't be like or not the training dummy, it was stored into the parent of the training dummy. And I thought I would then have everything extend from that, but that immediately raised some concerns because in some cases I will want things that you can lock onto that are just objects, kind of like the bullseye. Look at that in a second. Like the bullseye, something that's like static, maybe like an explosive barrel, in which case it wouldn't need to be a pawn or a character. It wouldn't need any sort of movement controls. But then something like my drone over there, which will be like an animate object, an enemy, I need to be able to lock onto. So already the parent actor situation was a little bit muddled because they're already like from diverging parents. Um, so yeah, that's now held in a component that actually lives as like a child actor to the I shouldn't call it a child actor. It lives as a component, child component or whatever, to the class as a whole. Now it can just be slapped onto anything that needs to be locked on. So it's a lot more modular, I'd say. One thing you might have noticed with me dashing around is there's now some sound effects for the dash. Just like a little pitter patter of footsteps played in quick succession. I think it does a good job of like selling that. More importantly, you've probably noticed that there's like a drone. The drone is set up using a behavior tree, which is something I didn't even know about until started working on it here as a system in Unreal. Its current behavior is to just generate a random spot within a sphere around it, and it just goes to it. So it's just kind of random. It's not like patrolling in a very defined manner yet, although I would like for that to be the case. It does have AI sense, which is Unreal's kind of like out-of-the-box tool for like giving it a sense of senses. It only has sight at the moment. I think if I do to F, the whatever key I just hit froze my Unreal. So let's can kill that. Oh, okay, got it. Let's see, is it? I forget the hotkey now. Oh, okay, well you can see that the site works as it switched from spawning those blue collision sphere looking things, and now it's just tracking. Its behavior is to track. Actually, I can pull up the tree while this is running. Let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. You can see now. So it's currently in its like combat state, which is its own sub tree. It cycles from focusing you if it's not already, so it's like always tracking. Then it waits a set duration, clears its focus, and then immediately starts charging. So that gives the player character an opportunity to kind of sidestep its attack. I need to do this differently. Let's do it. I need to make this window smaller, that's the real issue. Let's do it. Okay. There we go. I like to have it full screen normally because I feel like that better represents what it'll look like for the player, but in this case this is more helpful. So now you can see it in real time. It's waiting 3 seconds while focused on me, kind of the tell that it's tracking, and then once it's been 3 seconds, it'll drop the focus and start shooting where it's ever aimed at. So it's a very simple enemy AI in that regard. Also, don't mind the fact that the cursor does not work with the viewport being scaled like it is currently. But once you break line of sight, actually just pull the whole behavior tree over here. Once you break line of sight, we're using a, what is this called again? Like an abort, where if the state, which is being updated by the senses, the AI sense I mentioned, and like constantly being checked, if it ever breaks line of sight, it'll go into a pursue behavior. So I'll show what that looks like from the meta level. Then it goes back into combat. Stretch this. And the pursue is basically just its own task where it is just, it knows where you are. It's not, I initially started to go down the rabbit hole of like, what if I make just like, not a stealth game, but what if I make it intelligent? It like tries to track where the player was and like solve where they're going. But the more I thought about that, the more it felt like that's a lot of extra work for a behavior that is exploitable in a good way, arguably. Like the player can play around that and maybe have some fun moments with it. But realistically, this is going to be like I want this to be like a high intensity, high velocity playstyle. I don't want the enemies to constantly be trying to chase the player down just to even like resume combat. Or rather, I don't want them to have to continuously figure out where the player is to resume combat. If they have to chase, that's fine. But point being is, it's I think it's a little better for the style of what I envision this game being. For the enemy to just be like omniscient once they've seen you once. So as soon as you go around, they are now aware and they're like just pathing to you. As you can see, there's some like really fickleness around, like once it like gets just around the corner and you're in line of sight, then it like switches back. It probably needs like some sort of intermediate state where it technically sees you, but it doesn't just go back into combat. It like keeps turning the corner to get a little bit closer or to get a better line of sight. Because if the enemy is only going to give itself just like 1 millimeter of sight that it needs to see you, then all I have to do is take 1-inch step around the corner and it just messes up their AI. You can see in the like that log on the top left, it's losing and gaining sight based on me moving and it adjusting, which means it can never finish tracking the player to start charging a shot. For this weapon, it's like it's actually kind of balanced in some way, because if the enemy doesn't have line of sight, then I don't have line of sight of it either, basically. I can kind of cheese it, I guess, by aiming it manually like this, but I don't get the lock-on feature. But like for any other gun, it's like, you know, I could just be shooting it the whole time right here, and it's really gimmicky. So that'll need to be reworked. I wanted to kind of do like a strafe, and to that point, it's not implemented in any sense, so I'm not really gonna like show it off or talk about it. But I have started just the faintest investigations or like digging into of the EQS stuff, environmental query system, I think is what it is. And I don't know a lot about it, so I don't want to speak too much to it, but like this is like an example, me like kind of like setting up, this is a testing pawn that I have clicked, and the EQS system is set to kind of travel in a circle around the target, which is this player spawn that's just manually set as the target. This is me kind of like fiddling with the idea of like I don't want the drone to just like clamp up against the corner and just kind of drag along, trying to get the fastest possible, like not even the fastest possible line of sight, but the fastest, like the most direct route to the thing. I'd rather if I don't have line of sight from here, pretend I'm the drone right now, I would like for it to strafe around where the enemy is. Like obviously this is working off that omniscient logic still, but it seems more intelligent for it to kind of like maintain some distance, since it itself is a ranged unit. It wouldn't just from here. It should not just like chase into the corner and potentially get like hit at close range, because that's not how a ranged drone like that would work. So that's stuff that I'm looking at or was looking at just before I stopped. There is a sound system also. You might have like noticed that there's like a hum kind of. It sounds. Whoops! I hit the time dilation key. There is like a sound effect. You know, just humming at all times as it moves. It basically is just one tone right now, or like one output. You could say it's an oscillating sine, so it's not one tone. But the way I've set this up is it will kind of factor in both the speed at which the drone is, and then how much damage it is. There's still not any like implemented health system to speak of, so this variable is not used at all. And the movement speed is not currently being changed for the drone, but you might imagine that it's going to move slower as it is just patrolling, and then if it's pursuing or strafing around the corner at an enemy, you know, it might be a little bit faster, a little more intense. So that's the behavior I'm looking at. And then I think I alluded to it, or might have already stated it outright, but I do intend for the patrolling to be more intentional as well. I just wanted like some really basic behavior for kind of premeditating the combat by having it move around randomly. But I'll probably look into like setting up maybe like a spline type actor that's associated with the drone, and it'll probably just like walk in a route or something like that. I think I've seen stuff like that work. So let's see. Oh, I guess I just glossed over this, but I didn't realize that it was new since the last video. But yeah, it's already been shown now. But the beam attack has been touched up with particles. Very cool effect, if I say so myself. Very happy with how it looks, like the charging at least. The beam could probably be more interesting, and then naturally still needs to be kind of like an impact. Like maybe something like, I don't know, maybe like a aftermath, like a smoking or something around like steam, heat, I don't know, heat waves around the drone. But yeah, pretty good sell of like what it's at least trying to do. So happy with that. Yeah, that actually covers the bulk of the changes. I didn't really feel like going through the weeds on it because a lot of it's still like very like high level, and it's also been a second since I've touched it, which is kind of the segue into what I have been doing more recently. I'm tentatively putting these projects on sort of a short hold. I recently came across a set of resources that seem really interesting for learning Unreal, particularly on the C++ side. It's Tom Lumen's Unreal C++ course, if you've heard of it. So past week and some change, I've been working on that, and yeah, it's been really great. I've obviously touched C++ a little bit here and there on this project and Project Blue, but it's not ever been. It's been something I shied away from, admittedly, just because I didn't want to have to like tack on the entire learning curve of, you know, C++ and all its intricacies of being woven in with Unreal on top of Unreal itself, or like the editor of Unreal and, you know, blueprint scripting logic and game design. You know, felt like I had enough cut out for me. So, but this tutorial is pretty digestible, and it also touches on topics in the context of the Unreal editor itself, not just all in C++, because that's, I guess, like a necessity in some places. So, and it should be really applicable. I've already learned so much as far as like good practice around the componentizing objects and setting up kind of like base classes, a bit more than what I was considering initially. And like I think the next chapter I'm approaching is actually AI stuff. So I see a section on EQS, and it'll obviously touch the behavior trees some more. So I think very soon I will be learning stuff that is actually applicable to the thing I was immediately working on in Kickstep. So once I've gone through those sections, maybe I'll come back, or maybe I'll just push all the way through. I haven't really decided, but there will probably be kind of a small pause on these devlogs either way as I do that stuff. So, but yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. For those who are watching, this is always fun. And yeah, take care.